Quick game, we're playing a quick game. Let me know if you can tell what the hell is going on in this trailer. The trailer for Cyberpunk Edgerunners was edited together by the inventor of cocaine. It's insane. It's a shot of liquid adrenaline straight to your medulla. When I saw a trailer this bombastic, this over the top, one thought came to my mind. This show's gonna have incredible action and an incredibly boring story. And in my defense, this show had a lot going against it. For one, it's an adaptation of a video game. It's an adaptation of a video game with one of the most famously disappointing launches in gaming history. This wasn't an uphill battle, this was trying to storm Mount Everest. The negative press surrounding the game was inescapable, and I was just sort of sick of hearing about Cyberpunk after it. The disastrous launch of the video game soured my perception of the property, and it was gonna take a lot more than stylish animation to get me excited to revisit Night City. Second, in my experience, typically when an anime goes this hard in its trailer, it usually means that the story's gonna take a backseat to the animation. You know, like every shonen movie, and Bell, and Bubble, and Star Wars Visions. But then the show came out and the internet was like, oh, never mind, this shit's rad! Cyberpunk Edgerunners follows David Martinez, a high school student whose family is drowning in debt and lives in a world where it almost doesn't make sense not to be a criminal. David's mother is killed, he joins a gang, whatever, you already know how this plays out. He's a poor, charismatic kid in a world where most people have guns built into their forearms. However you think this is going to go down, you're correct. The show's animated by Studio Trigger, which is known for producing some of the most batshit insane anime there is. And this is some classic Studio Trigger action right here. The animation is fluid and intense, and every character looks like a different flavor of popsicle. So, to summarize, the show has astounding animation and a pretty generic plot. So, my fears were correct, right? Wrong! Yeah, the premise is everything you'd expect from a cyberpunk anime, but the execution is everything you'd want from one too. Not only does the show look great, but it actually has a compelling story. It has interesting characters and emotional depth. Like, a lot of emotional depth. Like an annoying amount of emotional depth. What are we doing? The show's called Cyberpunk Edgerunners, guys. I'm not trying to feel here. The emotions hit so hard because this isn't just a show about a bunch of badass, chromed out chooms looking for the next score. Bitch. It's a group of people trying to build personal connections in a world that discourages vulnerability. This world feels gritty and dangerous as hell. And it's not just because everybody's fucking each other in the streets and swearing all the time, but because we get to see these characters in their most desperate moments. Aesthetically, this is a world where everybody's got a grenade launcher built into their kneecaps and more eyes than the biblical depiction of angels. And yeah, sure, that results in a lot of badass fights. But thematically, this is a world where people can pay to have their insecurities replaced. You can replace your little noodle arms with big boy ones, run faster with cybernetic legs. But the more you use your cybernetic augmentations, the more medication you need to keep from losing your sanity. People become addicted to suppressing their imperfections, and you really connect with the plight of the show's characters. Their desperation, their fear. And there is a lot to fear. This is a world where people can hack your eyeballs. You go outside and your fucking eyeballs are hacked. Everybody's so insecure, so afraid of being anything less than perfect that they'll risk going insane just to mitigate their flaws. The show is a heartbreaking character study masquerading as a bombastic popcorn action series. And what makes that so cool is that a lot of video game adaptations don't take the time to explore the implications of the world they're adapting. They're content with just retelling themes and stories you've already experienced when playing the game. But it's clear that Studio Trigger took this property and asked themselves, what themes lend themselves to being explored in the cyberpunk universe? It's its focus on character relationships that propels the story beyond being another mindless adaptation, and proves the creator's passion towards this IP. But what really sells this show for me is its fucking confidence. This show is so confident in what it is, and that confidence goes such a long way towards immersing you in the world. Like most sci-fi dystopian properties, Cyberpunk comes with its own unique vocabulary. And I love it. Most sci-fi properties will just replace a few swear words with silly nonsense, and you're just like, what are you doing, the Maze Runner? You think you could just change the word crap to clunk and suddenly you're creative? You haven't built a compelling world, you've just come up with a synonym for poop. But in Cyberpunk, the characters are borderline speaking an entirely different language.
I made sure to lower the settings to mellow out the experience. Dial it back up?
No way, this is totally preem.
Work, huh?
If I didn't know any better, I'd say you were a pig socket. Doesn't cut it. Pea shooter like that won't even dent Maelstrom metal. Try this one out.
Seriously, Jum? A Satara?
The dialogue is so dense with these futuristic slang terms, and the voice actors say them so naturally that it makes the world feel so alive. The world feels foreign and lived in. It makes sense that language would evolve like this over the course of several decades. The show doesn't hold your hand through its world, it just shoves you overboard into a sea of hyperviolence and sludge. And in that, it can sometimes feel like you're just watching things happen. Like sometimes your eyes will just glaze over while people shout a bunch of nonsense sci-fi stuff and you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, just go get to the thing. Oh my god, and good fucking luck if you haven't played the game before watching this. What, you don't know what a brain dance is? What, did you just waddle out of the womb? Like I said, the plot beats themselves aren't as important as the characters' responses to them. And you really do grow attached to this group of characters. They're a group of manic psychopaths, but it's clear that they use adrenaline to hide from how shitty the world is. The hyperviolence is a coping mechanism, a way to establish walls so the world doesn't take advantage of their vulnerability. And there's just something so relatable about that kind of fear. And the show's confidence isn't just displayed in its commitment to world building, it's displayed in its restraint as well. This is a hyper-violent show, but the action isn't non-stop. There are moments of calm, moments of sorrow, moments of introspection. The show isn't afraid to calm down and let its characters and dialogue carry its scenes. The story doesn't hide behind its violence like its characters do. Instead, the story is complemented by it. The violence evolves throughout the story, taking on new meaning as the characters develop. At first, the action feels fun, exciting, it's over the top and stylish because it's meant to be a spectacle. It reflects David's excitement towards joining his new gang and entering this dangerous new world. But as the bodies pile up and David's morals and sanity begin to degrade, the violence becomes far more disturbing. It never becomes any more or less gory, but the characters' attitudes towards it changes drastically. They stop treating the explosions of gore with excitement and start treating them with shock and horror. It's a masterful example of how gratuitous violence can be used to develop a story's themes. The violence of the show never changes, it was there from the beginning. What changes is David and how he perceives the fucked up world he's helping build. Cyberpunk Edgerunners isn't just an adaptation of a property, it's an exploration of one. I'm glad they didn't just put V and Johnny Silverhand into anime form and tell an abridged version of the game's story, because we've already seen it. We've already experienced it. Anyone who already played the game's story isn't gonna want to experience it again with less control. For a while, this was something Hollywood just never understood about video game adaptations. When you adapt a video game into a show or a movie, you're inherently giving fans a worse experience. Oh, it's the story I've already experienced, except this time I don't get to play anything? Cool, that sucks. You have to give fans something to make up for the fact that they're no longer getting an interactive experience. Edgerunners gives us a new cast of characters and uses its time to immerse us in its world and themes, rather than copying a plot we already know. This is what made Castlevania and Arcane so successful as well. I keep seeing articles saying, Cyberpunk Edgerunners proves that all video game adaptations work best in anime form. And I just don't think that's true. I think the reason Castlevania, Arcane, and now Edgerunners works so well is because the creators realize that if you take away the interactivity of a video game, you have to replace it with something else. Sure, you don't get to play Edgerunners, but that gives you more time to focus on the characters. Edgerunners succeeds because it cares more about immersing us into the world than retreading familiar ground. Yeah, it's full of action, the animation is incredible, and the soundtrack fucking bangs, but it's the show's willingness to show its characters' vulnerability that really impressed me. It would have been so easy to make this a mindless bloodbath of a show full of emotionless, badass characters. But instead, we get a series that explores the full thematic potential of its property. What it means to be human, what it means to be less than human. It doesn't feel like a lazy cash grab like a lot of video game adaptations. The anime aesthetic fits the world of Cyberpunk rather than clashing with it and feeling out of place. Edgerunners is blowing people away because it wants to blow them away. I'll admit, I was one of the idiots that fell into the hype when the game first launched. I pre-ordered it, played it for about 3 hours, and then crumbled under the weight of my own disappointment and never touched it again. Well, it's been 4 days now since I finished the anime, and I'm embarrassed to say that I've been itching to dive back into Night City ever since. If I can give this show one compliment, it's that it's actually gotten me to re-download Cyberpunk 2077. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out some of the other content on my page. And if you want to help support the channel and make sure I'm able to keep putting out as much content as I do, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. There you'll get access to exclusive videos every month, as well as access to my exclusive Discord server. Let me know in the comments what other movies, shows, or games you'd like to see me cover next, and I will see you guys next time.
It's your line, la la la, oh, it's fine.